info trickling in from other sessions. So this session is Intro to AI with Azure and Office 365. And my name is Jason Rivera, and a little bit of information about myself here. I am a solution architect out in the Philadelphia area. I've been working with SharePoint since 2005. I'm active in the community. I organize a monthly user group in our area, the Tri-State Office 365 user group, and I am the organizer of M365 Philly, which was our SharePoint Saturday event. We had ours back in July, and we're scheduling the next one up for next year, which is probably also going to be a virtual session by the looks of it. I blog at sharepointlessons.wordpress.com, and right there at the bottom of the screen is my contact information. Twitter is at SharePointJR, and then that link right there is to my LinkedIn profile if you want to connect with me. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to talk a lot about artificial intelligence, and we're going to do an overview of Azure Cognitive Services. And we're going to talk about a couple of different solutions that I've built over the years. Some of them are a little outdated, but the idea is to just kind of give you some ideas of what is possible and what kinds of use cases are out there. So we're going to see a demo using text analytics, computer vision. We're going to see one with language understanding, and then at the end, I'm going to show you some of the tools that are some of the newer ones, Power Virtual Agents and AI Builder, where we will build chatbots and look at OCR solutions. So this is going to be pretty demo heavy, so you're not going to see slides until the very end now. When you're getting started with these things, there's the Azure Cognitive Services, and these are the services that do a lot of AI work for you. So you're essentially just calling an endpoint, feeding it some data, and it's going to return a response, typically in the form of a score. So if you go to the Cognitive Services site and you scroll down here, you can see all of the different things that are available to you. So they fall into these 5 buckets: decision, language, speech, vision, and web search. And under decision, you have things like content moderator. That's things like understanding if the content that's coming through is offensive or if there's racy images. Let me pop up here. Okay. Then under language, you have things like language understanding, so being able to provide a sentence to the service and having the service understand what it is you're trying to say. So if you're doing, if you want to say something like a date or a number, you could write the word or say or write the number, and it will still understand what's going on there. There's text analytics, which lets you do things like sentiment, understanding the sentiment behind the sentence, like if the sentence was a positive or a negative sentence. Under speech, you have the speech to text and the text to speech, which is pretty self-explanatory. Under vision, you have computer vision, identifying images that are in identifying things in an image, basically. You have form recognizer, facial detection, and then down here under the web search, these are the Bing APIs. So I haven't been on the site in a couple of weeks, so there used to be several links here to show you some of the Bing related things that you could use. So things like doing a search for an image, so taking a picture of something and then having the service return images that look similar to that. Okay. So now when you're getting started with these things, you basically need to go into the Azure Portal. So now, if you have an admin who's responsible for these things, that admin could set these things up for you and then just give you some of the information, and you're good to go. There's really not much that needs to be done here. But if you go into your Cognitive Services section and you could just type in Cognitive Services, and it'll take you to this page. and you can click Create Cognitive Service. And you're going to see a list of all the different AI machine learning offerings that are out here. So you have bot services that we're interested in. You have ML services, machine learning, robotic process automation, and some more. And I think every time I pop in here, there seems to be more and more things in here. So we are interested in these cognitive services. So I'm going to hit See More. And we're going to see our list, right? So here's the computer vision. Here's the facial detection that I was pointing out earlier. Speech. There's a Q&A maker. Here's our text analytics. So typically when you're setting these up, the steps are pretty much the same. So you would pick the service that you're interested in. You would hit Create. You would pick your subscription, give it a name, pick your location, and your pricing tier. There's generally a free tier that you can try these things out with. I believe there's a limit to the number of free tiers that you can use. Is probably like 1 or 2. So you may not have multiple free services out there at one time. But if you're trying it out, you can use the free tier. You can see 5,000 transactions per 30 days. And source group. Once you do that, I'm not going to do that here because this is my work tenant. But once you do that, you get taken to a page with more information about your service, and it's typically broken into 3 sections. So there's the one section that will give you the keys that you're going to need to pass the endpoint for security purposes. It's going to give you some documentation, and it's also going to give you the endpoint that you're going to need. And once you have that information, you're pretty much good to go to use the service. So if we have one set up, I can show you, sorry, let's see. I'm going to show you a sentiment analysis app that I built a few years ago. So this is an Outlook add-in that's using sentiment analysis. And the purpose of the add-in is to read the text in your email message and score it, how positive, how negative it is. So I'm going to hit Start here, and it should open up a browser tab. Hopefully already logged in. Let's see. Here we go. So it opened up this email here, or my Outlook here. And all right, so if I hit New Message, I could start typing into the body here, right? This is an awesome event. And down here, with the 3 little dots, you could see this is the menu for my app, the one that we're demoing here, so positivity score. If I click on it, it's going to say that sentence was 92% positive. If I say this is a bad sandwich, it should give me something lower. %. And then if I say this is an okay TV show. Never tried that sentence before. We'll see what happens. 78. So it's not as positive as the previous one, or as the first one, but definitely better than the negative sandwich comment. So we'll take a look at the code real quick. And there's not much code demos in this one. Right? There's only 2 of them, but just to give you an idea. So this is an Outlook add-in, and this is an old Outlook add-in. I believe there's newer ways of doing this now, but there's some portions in here that are probably the same. And so right off the top here, what we're doing is we're getting the body of the message, and we're passing it into this sentiment. And something happened on my machine recently that some of these colors are a little off. So hopefully it's okay to see. And I'm going to bump this up a little bit just so that we can see better. So we're going to the calculate sentiment. And then down here, based on the documentation that you get from that Azure page that I mentioned, you can build the document the way that it's expecting it, right? So it's expecting a language, it's expecting an ID, it's expecting text, which is the body of your email. And then all of that gets wrapped inside of documents, right? Well, we get the key, which was also something that we got from Azure. In my case, I just have a function that's returning the hard-coded value just to hide it, but you know, it's a GUID basically. And then it tells you in the documentation what you need to do, what you need to provide in the headers. And this is the endpoint, which is hard to see. Hopefully highlighting that changes it a little bit. But you could see eastus.api.cognitive.microsoft.com, text, analytics, v2.0, sentiment. So this is the sentiment analysis API. So then I pass in the message. It takes that message, it scores the message, it returns the score, and then I take the score and I call this set chart function, which just creates that little radial chart that you saw out there. So that's all that's really needed to get started from the code perspective. These services, like I said, you pass it some data, it gives you a number, you use that number. That for the most part, that's what happens. Okay, so that was the first demo. Pretty quick and easy. Call an endpoint, give it the values, and then do what you want with it. The next thing that I want to talk about is image recognition. So let me, let's see, let's pop up, I believe it's this one here. Okay, so image recognition. So story behind this one, I had a client that was, they have hundreds of offices across the US, and they have a central marketing department, and then each of the little satellite offices have their own regional marketing needs. So when they're promoting things, or when they need to send out flyers or anything that has any sort of images, they would go to a central repository where their corporate marketing team had control, and that central team was responsible for uploading the approved images and tagging them. And those tags are what people were using to search for those images. Now, that can be time consuming, and then tagging it is also hit or miss, because you might use some terms or some words for the image that you're tagging, but you don't know what kind of words the person looking for it was using to find those images. So the big issue was that the tagging could be better, and it was also time consuming. So they asked if I had any ideas, and I sat at my desk during my lunch break and started playing with the image recognition. And what I did was I built this solution that lets you upload the images to SharePoint, and on the back end, a flow will automatically tag them for you. So, as an example, here are some of the images that I've been using for this demo. So you could see Bob Ross painting a picture here, a bunch of cats, Windows, old Windows background, skateboarder, and a restaurant. So I'm going to just drag these images over here. And there's a flow running in the background, and I'm going to show you the flow. So here's the flow, image recognition. And while it's running, I could show you just how easy it is to set it up, right? So you have the trigger here. Basically, when a file gets created or uploaded to a document library, in this case, it's my image recognition library, start running this flow. So the flow starts running. and I take the file and I get the metadata from the file. I get the properties from the file. This is standard stuff that you tend to set up when you're dealing with files in SharePoint. And then you have the analyze image action. And if you go in here and you try to add an action, you could see it's like cognitive. You can see some of them here. So you've got computer vision, content moderator, custom vision. When you're setting these up, there are some setup steps that you have to do. And actually, let me try one with content moderator. It's been a while since I've used it. So here it's asking for your API key and your endpoint. So again, the steps that I showed you in the previous demo, this is where you would feed that type of data. Once you do that, and once you hit create, it doesn't ask you again. And then you just kind of get taken to a display like this where it's asking you for the actual fields. But the first time that you drop this analyze image, it will look similar to what this content moderator is showing you. So I'm going to delete this so we don't confuse things. All right. And for the analyze image, it's asking me what's my image source. So I have a URL or content. In this case, since I have access to the file, I'm picking content, and I'm grabbing this file content from, I believe it's from the first one here. Then after that, I am getting this action is producing a bunch of data, captions, tags, and other things. So I'm grabbing all the tags and I'm just kind of putting them all together into a string. And then down here, I am updating the file properties with the caption that again comes from analyze image, and the output where I just kind of combined everything. So once it runs through all these steps, if we go back, you can see that all my images were tagged. All of this was missing before I switched away to the flow. And if I click on, I can click on, let's see, where's Bob Ross? So here's the picture of Bob Ross. Okay. And then over here, you could see it tagged it with, or it captioned it with Bob Ross standing in front of a mountain. And then the individual tags were person, man, outdoor, camera, smiling, mountain. Every now and then it'll miss. So right here, you can see it says eating. He's not eating, he's painting. River, water, field. So, you know, it's pretty good, right? If you imagine if you're that marketing team putting out content for hundreds of offices, I believe it was 500 offices, and you don't know what anybody's searching for, you can have something like this go ahead and plug in at least some of the keywords that might show up, and then you fill in the gap after the fact. But at least you get started. You can drop in, you know, several hundred, several dozen, several hundred images in here, and it'll tag them within a few minutes. So we can take a look at a few others. Let's see, where's the skateboarder? I think it's this one. So there's the skateboarder, a man riding a skateboard, outdoor man riding, jumping, skateboard, hill, street, ramp. Again, a couple of misses there, but for this use case, that's not too big of a deal. Okay. So I mentioned there were a few misses here. I did forget to mention that on the first demo that I showed, that one was also just a proof of concept, so it wasn't a completed solution. And one of the issues with that solution is that if you had multiple sentences, the scoring wouldn't be quite right. So it looked like it was just scoring the last sentence in the demo that I provided. But you know, it's probably just a matter of kind of aggregating all of, or scoring all of the sentences and coming up with an aggregate score or an average. So let's see. So far we saw sentiment analysis and we saw image recognition. The next thing that I want to talk about are chatbots. So I'm going to show a little bit of code here, but I'm not going to run it because I don't have the running. Actually, let me turn off this one because, anyway. So here's the bot. And so with the bot framework, this was the first bot that I've ever written. This was actually it started off as a I was following the tutorial on Pluralsight. Now, I don't know if the video is still out there, but it was a really good video. The instructor was showing you how to create a room reservation bot. So you could type in, how many beds or what size bed, how many guests, how many days you're planning on staying at the place. It lets you search for amenities, and it was a really good demo to get your head wrapped around all the different things that you needed to do with the bot. And this is pretty old as well, so I'm sure there's newer ways to do these things, and there's newer tools available to you now. But in this case, you could see that there's some room reservation stuff in here. And the thing that I added on here was a help desk ticketing system. So a little bit of information about bots. These chat bots, the way that they work is that you create an intent, or now they're being referred to as topics in Power Virtual Agents. But you have this topic, and it's a help desk ticket, a room reservation, something like that. And you give it a couple of sentences to train it so that it understands what it is you're trying to do. And when someone types in a sentence like, I would like to submit a help desk, I would like to book a room, it takes that sentence, it runs it against the LUIS service, the Language Understanding Intelligence Service. That service scores it and returns that number. That number is, it'll say 70% probability that they're trying to create a help desk ticket. And then once it gives you that, you start going down the path of the questions for that help desk ticket. So with that backstory there, or explanation, you can see that under the help desk ticket, once LUIS says that this is a help desk ticket, it comes into this method here. And then I have this form dialog, help desk ticket. And I'll go to definition. And I apologize. I don't know what happened with I must have had a recent update or something, but some of this is a little difficult to see. But the way the bot framework works is you create some properties up at the top, and these are the questions that it's going to ask in this exact order, in the exact order that they appear right up here at the top of your class. So it would ask me, what service is required, what's the severity of the issue, and then to provide a description. And in this case, it would actually say, tell me about your issue. In these cases, it'll say something like, what is the service required? And so down here, you can see there's a lot of different things that's going on. We're submitting the ticket, and in this example that I had put together years ago, we were calling the Microsoft Graph. I think we were doing some things with Delve and Planner. We were setting the priority of a task in Planner, so we were assigning it to a help desk technician, essentially. There were some emails that were being sent around. I think at one point I started playing with adaptive cards in here. So this thing does quite a bit, but sometimes these bots tend to get complicated. So recently, fairly recently, Microsoft introduced Power Virtual Agents. And Power Virtual Agents gives you a UI-based way of Power Virtual Agents gives you a UI-based way of creating these chat conversations. So I'm going to show that next. We can see in Power Virtual Agents. I'm going to go here to Home, and we have this bot here. And I mentioned intents or topics. So here's topics. And you can see I have a few topics. Most of these are there when you create your first one, but I added this help desk one up here in the room booking one. I also added the room booking one. I'll come back to the room booking one, but I'll explain to you why this is a good thing to be using. And I don't know what is going on all of a sudden. Let's see. Let me refresh the page here. It's Friday the 13th, I guess. All right. Hopefully that fixed whatever those messages were. So yeah, okay, I fixed it. So if I go into my help desk topic, you'll see a few example sentences that I put in here to train this model. So I put in, I need to create a service ticket. I need help. I'd like to submit a ticket. So now, remember I said that it takes the sentence that you provide and it gives it a score and it says, most likely trying to ask you this or that. So in this case, I'm going to say, I'd like to submit a help desk ticket. So, there's no mention of help desk here, anywhere in here. You see, I like to submit is here. You can see ticket is in here. So if I hit this, it should trigger the bot to start. And it's thinking, and it's thinking. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger. There we go. So there you go. Hi, I'm the help desk bot. I'm going to walk you through your ticket request. Please provide a title for your ticket. Where is that coming from? So that is coming from, I think I may have made this a little too big. Let me go back a little bit. Over here on the right side, there's the go to authoring canvas. And this is very similar to your experience in Power Automate. So you go down and you create the next thing that's going to occur in the chain of questions that this bot is going to ask you. So you could see that the very first, the first thing it did was it greeted me. And here's my message here. This is where it came from. The green check mark just says that it completed that step. So now you could see that it's in the please provide a title. So I could say my laptop won't. Okay. Now you can see it moved on to the next question. So the next question is a multiple choice options question. So you can see the question is how would you categorize your issue? Is this a PC equipment issue or is it a PC software issue? I can either type this in or I can click on it. So I'm going to click on it. And the next one is what's the priority? So again, I said I could type it in, right? So I'm going to type in medium. And then the last step, can you please provide a brief description of your issue? Won't hold a charge. I don't know. Just making something up here. All right. And then a couple of things are about to happen here. Here's my message. I don't know if you heard the dings. You probably heard the dings, but emails are coming through now. Several emails are coming through now. So it says, thank you. The following information was recorded and a technician will reply to you soon. And you can see the title, my laptop won't stay on, PC equipment issue, medium priority, won't hold a charge. And you can see here it says ticket ID 17. So I'm going to go to my email real quick. And you can see that the tickets were coming in. Now I am the submitter and the technician. So, I get multiple emails and it kind of goes a little bit nuts sometimes. But through the bot, let me go back to the bot here. There is a flow that is basically taking all of this information and deciding what to do with it. So if I click on it, which I may have had it already open over here, but and I hit edit, you can see it's not a lot of steps. It's pretty straightforward. So we're expecting some values back from the Power Virtual Agent. These are the values that I'm telling it to expect. These are the values that you saw me just enter in. Then I'm creating an item in SharePoint. I'm getting some items out of I'm creating an item with the data that came from Power Virtual Agents. I'm not setting a task status yet. We're getting some items. We're looping through, and what we're doing is we're checking the status and then figuring out what type of email to send. So I'm sending myself an email. There's a ticket for you. The title of the email, or the title of the ticket, the link to the item in SharePoint, and then down here I have some conditional sentences that'll get popped into the email depending on the severity of the issue. So in this case, it just says if it's a medium, work on this ticket in 8 hours or less to meet the SLA. And then once that is done, let me go back up here and make this smaller. We return a value back to Power Virtual Agents just so that there's something to give the user. And in this case, we were just sending the ID of the item that we created in this step here. So pretty simple, right? You give it data that came from Power Virtual Agents. You decide what you want to do. You can send some emails, and then there's a return to the Power Virtual Agents so that you can decide what you want to do next. So let's take a look here. If we go to SharePoint real quick, and I believe help desk here, I have a contents help desk. You can see item number 17 right here is the new item. My laptop won't stay on, won't hold a charge, PC equipment issue, status not started. Okay. So I said I was going to come back to the booking chatbot. The first time that I did this, when I was learning how to write bots using the bot framework, I think I probably spent about 2 weeks just recreating the demo. And I did a couple other bots after that, and they don't take too long. It depends on what the business logic is, especially if you have a bunch of branching and things. But it did take some time. It took me about 2 weeks to kind of get my head wrapped around it and actually complete something. With Power Virtual Agents, I was doing a very similar demo at work, and I threw this in at the last minute. I had just learned about Power Virtual Agents. So 20 minutes before my demo, I figured this out, recreated that bot that I mentioned took 2 weeks in that 20 minutes, and then presented it in that meeting. So these bots can be very quick and easy to do, especially since you have this visual component and Power Automate to kind of help you build that out. One thing I didn't mention here, though, I glossed on it a little bit in the beginning here, is when you hit this add node, you get a couple of different options. You can ask a question, add a condition, call an action, which would be something like call a flow, or show a message. So, all these examples above are the ask a question, or right here, where am I? So these are the ask a question. You can see the title there, question. Here's your message, which is just the text box where you can drop in some additional information. And then there's the call to action is the calling of the flow, and then the conditions here, you can do branch logic. So if you say, if the customer says it's a high priority, take these steps. If they say it's a medium priority, take these other steps. So it's a lot of pretty cool flexibility right out the gate there with the tool without having to be a developer to build these things. So let's see, that's bot framework, Power Virtual Agents. The last thing that I want to talk about is AI Builder. So AI Builder is an OCR service. The idea, well, I'm sorry. One of the things that you can use it for is OCR, but it does a few different things. And actually, let me just go straight to Power Virtual Agents to show you what I mean. I believe I have it open here. Here we go. So if you go to Power Automate or Power Apps, you might have a section in there for AI Builder. You might have to sign up for it, but under AI Builder, you have these different models here. So there are 5 models here that you can train with your data and teach it what it is that you're looking for. So there's Form Processor, which lets you take a series of very similar files, and you can pull text from those files and then use that text to do whatever it is you want to do. You have Prediction, which will tell you things like, is this likely, if you pass it in sales data, is it likely that you're going to land this sale or not? So like a yes or no, win-loss kind of thing. There's Object Detection, which identify objects in an image. So one of the examples that you'll see is you'll see a series of Office logos or Office images, and in the image you'll see the Microsoft logo, and it will identify wherever it is in that image. And then category classification. This is if you feed it a sentence, it'll tell you things like if the sentence is something you would have normally flagged as spam or those type of things. And then entity extraction is it'll pull out information from a sentence. So if it sees a date or a city or a state in a sentence, it will identify which word is that date, city, state. And then down here at the bottom, these are already like pre-packaged models. So you can just plug this in. You don't have to teach it what to look for. You can pass it a business card and it'll pull information out of that business card. Unlike the form processor, where you give it like an invoice or a mortgage statement or a tax return, and you tell it where all the individual pieces are. And then once you start feeding it more, it goes, okay, I know where these things are coming from. So this is the one that I'm going to talk about today. Let's just start building. I'm not going to build it from start to finish because I already have one that's already set up. The one thing about AI Builder is that it does a really good job of explaining to you what it's expecting. So you could see that there's some examples in here, and it's showing you, an invoice where you can pull out the data. It's showing you that you can do it with, mortgage statements, school applications, pulling out the data there. It gives you some best practices, so make sure that the documents are the same layout. If you have 2 completely different forms, it's not gonna be able to figure out where to pull the correct data from. So over here, it's telling you, make sure they look the same, basically. So we'll hit create here. And the very first thing it should ask you to do is to, actually, it's going to ask me what kind of fields do I want to extract, right? So I know I'm dealing with invoices, so I'm going to pick the customer, the company, service, and the invoice number. Let's also do the invoice date. Okay. So this, just for now, the one that I'm going to show you at the end here is going to have actually more fields to pull that are going to be pulled out of the document. So for the purposes of this, just to kind of get through it, I'm just going to show you 5 fields here. Let's see, we'll do new collection. So this UI has changed on me twice now. This is the first time I'm seeing the new collection part. So we'll do the add documents. We will upload from local storage. And let me see. Oops. Let's see where I'm going to pull it out of my projects. All right, so here are some invoices. Now I'm going to pull these 5 in here, and I'm going to hit open, and we're gonna upload these 5. It's gonna check them out here. Let me open up one of these documents so you see what I'm working with here. So this is the invoice template. All of the invoices are going to look the same. You can see the invoice number, invoice date, the service that we're offering. There's some pricing information down here. The customer, the customer's company, the address, city, state, zip code, phone number, email address. Okay, pretty standard stuff. So the file's uploaded. I'm going to hit close. I'm going to hit analyze. And while that's analyzing, let's take a look at the flow, because that actually might take a little bit. The flow is here. This is my process invoice flow. And what I'm doing, very similar to what you saw earlier, we're waiting for a file to get created or uploaded in the invoices library in SharePoint. We then have this predict action, and we pick the model that we want to run against it. So we were just setting up M365 Chicago as the model, the one that we were building the test. If I publish it, it would show up in this list down here. But for now, obviously it's not there. This processor is the one that I had set up previously. You tell it what type of document to expect in that little hover card and that little pop-up thing there. You could see some of the different examples of files that you can give it. So in my case, I'm doing application/PDF. I'm going to be giving it PDF files. And then I'm going to pass in the file that was just created in the document library. And that is going to then take the file, run it against the model, pull out the necessary data, and then pass that back to SharePoint. This step here is nothing. This is just, I was just trying to get what data comes back, like what's going to be available from the response from this predict. And you can see in here, there's things like, let's see. You will see things like display and like confidence scores. Here we go, confidence. The location of the values, the display name, confidence. Again, like I said, all these services basically they spit back a number. What are the chances that this person meant this? So like I said, this parse JSON part here was not, it's not really used in this demo. It was just for testing purposes. But down here, you grab the metadata from the file using the file path that came from here. And then you update the properties. And these values come from the predict and the specific fields here: invoice number, client name, client company. These are the fields that we defined when we were creating the model. So you saw me create the 5 fields. If I had published that one and used that here, I would see those 5 as options. And actually, if I go over here on the right side and scroll down to the bottom where they are, you could see some of the other values that I can grab: address, and then there's some information about the address, the coordinates of where the address appears. There should be here's the confidence score. So how confident are you that this is an address, basically, is what the service is doing. And that's pretty much it for the flow. if I go back over here, let's see. We've analyzed the documents, and now the next thing it wants you to do is go through each of the documents that you uploaded. You need 5 documents to be able to train. So let's see if I can make this a little bigger. There we go. All right, so now you just need to start highlighting where everything is. So I can highlight the invoice number, and I could say this is my invoice number. I'll highlight the invoice date. This is my date. Customer, company, service. Okay, and then you basically do that 5 times. So click on it. Invoice number, invoice date, customer, company, service. So you do that 5 times, you hit next, it trains the model, and then you publish it, and then that's when it's available in the flow. So once you do that, and I probably should have did this step while we were doing all of that, I'm going to take the invoices, is basically the same 5 invoices that I used to train it plus 1 extra one. And right now what's happening is the flow is going to get triggered. Go back here, and it should start running any moment now. Oops. In the meantime, while we wait, if anybody has any questions, I can answer them, but this shouldn't take too long. Okay. Let's go over here, let's refresh this. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. I guess in the meantime, what I could do is I could show the rest of this here. So I will do the invoice number, invoice date. This is the service. It's a little tedious, but it's also not something that you're gonna do often. And in this case, you only need to train it 5 times. So it's not too bad. Let's see. Invoice number, date, service, company, customer, and the last one, number, date, service, customer, company. All right. Then you do train, and it just runs against those 5 documents, understands what the file should look like and where everything should go. Let's see, did this thing finally kick off? Usually it doesn't take that long. No, here we go. All right, so it ran over here, and you could see it pulled out the name, the company, the service offered for all of these files. The 6th file was one that I did not use to train the document. You can also do handwritten forms, but what ends up happening is if it's sloppy handwriting, or if, like, let's say when you open up the document that the person's name is like written in an angle and starts overlapping sections, that's where it gets a little bit tricky. Your confidence score will get low. And then what you could probably do, though, is you could say, if the confidence score is less than 70%, notify somebody to review this specific document and send that person a link to that document. But outside of that, I mean, pulling, if you have clearly defined areas where things belong, that's even better. So like in this case, there's a lot of room for mistakes, right? So So depending on the name of your city name could be really long and cross over where most of the trained models thought the state would appear, and then it starts messing with the confidence score a little bit. But if you had something like, if you think of like your tax forms or your mortgage documents where everything is very clearly defined in boxes and they all have their own spaces, those are probably the best types of forms to run against this model. Okay, so the training was complete. You could test it and drag and drop a file in there and it'll show you. Actually, why not try it? We got a few minutes. So let's see, drag the file in and you could see what it does is it'll highlight the areas where it found the values. Everything is running slow for me today. So you can see invoice number, confidence score of 100, invoice date, confidence score of 100, 99 confidence score for the name, because you can see the boundaries kind of overlapping with the company name the way I set it up. But it's still pretty good here, right? Let's see, if I put in I believe this one is a handwritten one. Yeah, so I hand wrote this one a while back, and this one's going to be all messy. All right, so confidence score of 36%. You could see the date is kind of creeping up into the box. Down here, confidence score of 72 because I kind of wrote underneath the sentence. 96, my name showed up where it was supposed to be, but my company name is somewhere in the middle of all of this stuff, and it just got really, really confused about where things were supposed to be. So you can see the confidence scores all over the place. So yeah, if you have a PDF coming in, something that's typed, something that's clearly defined, everything is going to be in its place. Those are the best documents to work with. All right, so let's wrap it up here. My time is running out here. Go back to the slide. So what have we, whoops, sorry about that. What have we covered so far here? So we talked about Azure Cognitive Services. We talked about the different services that are available, and we even walked through how to set it up in Azure, or how to have your admin set it up in Azure, and how you would consume that data. It's pretty straightforward, a few steps just to get it up and running, and it tends to be a few steps just to get it working in an app, or using that same data in a flow for future steps for other types of projects. We talked about the different services that were there and what kinds of information come back. That typically there's a confidence score component to each of these services. We walked through the text analytics and we showed how you can use those services in an Outlook add-in, just to give you an idea of ways to use it. We looked at computer vision and we saw how it was able to identify celebrities in a file and come up with tags for all the different things that are in the image for you. We talked about Power Virtual Agents and chatbots, so two different ways of creating conversational apps, with Power Virtual Agents being the newer of the solutions, and quite honestly pretty easy to figure out. Like I said, it took 20 minutes of me just kind of fumbling through right before a meeting, and I got something up and running that was demoable. And then AI Builder, we talked about specifically about form processor, and we showed how we can extract data and use Power Automate to pull that data out and store it alongside the document in SharePoint, which gives you the added benefit of being able to filter for the data that you're looking for. All right. And then underneath that top section where we saw the models that you could train, I mentioned that there were several models at least 9 models, where you don't have to do any of the training yourself. You can just set it up, feed it some data, and it will do its thing and figure out, what the sentiment is, or what the data from the business card is, or what items are in the your receipt. If you want to do a solution like a solution to pull out data from your receipts for invoice processing. And then if you want more information about this, I'm going to put this deck out on the share. But there's the Azure Cognitive Service site, the Bot Framework site. Our virtual agents and AI builders are add-ons, so you'll want to check that out and look at the pricing. They both have free trials. And then I have a series of blog posts that kind of touch on all of these things. Again, some of them are old, but again, the idea is to give you some ideas of what you could do. Thanks to our sponsors. These sponsors, you can't do these events without these sponsors. So it's very important that they participate, and it's very appreciated that they participate. So check out their material, and these are some pretty good companies on this list. And then the donations are going to support Chicago Public Schools. So take a look at that. And then there's also some feedback forms for the speakers. So feedback is appreciated. And with that,